Here we go for the power rankings in the IPL so far. The last time we did power rankings, of course, the entire league shut down. So, I mean, we can always hope that doesn't happen again. Same rules apply. This is not a points table. This is, well, in this case, it's even weirder because we have like recent form and 6 months ago form and all sorts of things. But we're trying to get a really good idea of which teams are most likely at the moment and which teams are less likely at the moment. So we're looking at injuries, we're looking at the schedule ahead, we're making predictions of what things might happen, and of course we're assuming that everyone is going to beat the Sunrisers in pretty much every game. Although the Sunrisers will actually win a couple of games, most probably, but you can't really factor that in. Remember that all rankings are correct and you cannot argue with them in the comments below. It's sad, but that's just the rules, I suppose. Alright, let's start with Chennai, so we can annoy Delhi fans right off the top. They went 3-0, it could have been 1-2. They obviously won a very close game, and also the collapse against Mumbai was fantastically awful. Losing that many wickets and an injury at the start of a game, I mean, you've actually got to respect the hustle at a certain point from Chennai, but to come back in that game, and it's worth just looking at the game. Against Mumbai, it was the bowlers who were spectacular, and they really, really were something else. And against RCB, it was the batters who were just incredible. And against KKR, it was everyone. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Chennai is just a fantastically balanced cricket team. And, you know, the ability to drop Bravo and bring in Sam Curran. They may not be better than Delhi. Some other team might come from nowhere and get it all together and storm through the finals. But either way, it is quite clear that Chennai is the most balanced cricket team in this tournament. Looking at their last 4 games, they've got the Sunrisers, so yay for them. They've also got Royals, Delhi, and Punjab. So I kind of feel that they should be planning to go 3-1 in those games. And you know, they only need 2 wins really to guarantee their top 2 spot. Hey Delhi fans, sorry you are number 2, but there's a reason you're number 2, and it's kind of slightly out of your control. A, you didn't actually play that good of sides in this particular period, so I think we have to factor that in a little bit. And the other one is that looked as good as Chennai, the Marcus Stoinis injury. So let's just start with Chennai. Chennai actually played an extra game and played stronger opponents and did very, very well. As I said, Chennai could have gone the other way. I don't think there's much between it. I think these 2 top teams are in a tier on their own, and the points table is pointing out that no one else is particularly close to them. I think that's very fair and accurate. Congratulations to the points table. I do want to talk about Marcus Stoinis' hamstring, however. The fact that they haven't actually replaced him with an overseas, and that he may not be able to bowl again in this tournament. I mean, we don't know. We don't really get proper injury updates from the IPL. Players just disappear and maybe they will reappear. But that's a big concern with the finals not too far away. It's not a concern for the rest of the season. They've already locked up first place, and I have no problem with them going on and getting a top 2 spot. They've already locked up a spot in the playoffs, and I have no problems with them, with or without Stoinis, being able to get a top 2 spot. But it is a concern going forward. One thing I would like to talk about is Anurag Nokia's current form. Actually, it's not just his form. I thought he was spectacular at times last year. He seems to be the most consistently quick bowler in the world. You know, I'd be him and Mark Wood, wouldn't it? They just seem to be able to bowl incredibly fast, consistently. I never understood how Nokia was going to go. I couldn't understand, other than the actual pace, how he would, you know, do well in the IPL. But he looks fantastic, to be fair to him. And his figures so far, he is going at 3.75 runs and over, and he's going an average of 7.5. I mean, he's even got symmetry on his side. Their last 4 games are Kolkata, Mumbai, CSK and RCB. All those teams are going to be pushing pretty hard for finals positions. They've got to play the number 2. They've got to play the team that they're on top of the table with, and they've got to play the team who's 3rd. I think without Stoinis, you would say that they could cruise and still win 2-2, which would get them a top 2 spot. They'd be more than happy with that. They might be able to go 3-1 as well, but 2-2 is more than they need, really. Kolkata are 2-1, and they went within, well, complete madness, really, of beating Chennai and going 3-0. But they look like a completely different team since the break. Apparently, Owen Morgan's captaincy is no longer shit, or it's still shit, but KKR are better. It doesn't really matter anymore at a certain point. They have changed the way they play. They have gone with a risky lineup, and that lineup is working. Pat Cummins is, you know, one of the most sought after T20 players in the world, and maybe the best thing that happened to them is the fact that Pat Cummins was not available. They seemed unable to make the change before because of Owen Morgan's form and Pat Cummins' form, and they were sort of stuck with those two guys. And Pat Cummins going has meant that they've been able to change their lineup, and everything is working for them. What about Venki Iyer? He bats good, now he bowls good. I mean, he's going to be wicket keeping in the next game. The man's on fire. He just seems to see the ball really well. What a player to be able to bring in and just boost your batting. And they already had good batting. They just couldn't find the players to make the runs that they needed to. But they look like a different team with him at the top of the order. Now, I've got them ranked third, and I think it's fair for you to go, well, wait a minute, let's have a look at the point. This is not a points table. Basing it on their form since they have come back, and the way that their team is now going. I still think that there's a fluky's the wrong term, but there's a bubble that might burst for them. But the fact that they took Chennai so close and really could have won that game says to me that this might actually be more than just a couple of games on form. They might have actually just worked out a better code for T20 cricket. And if that's the case, I'm happy to have them up at third. They may completely embarrass me, but that's what T20 teams generally try and do. The other reason that I've got them up so high is because of what is to come. Last 4 games, they've got Delhi Capitals. That's a coin toss. You probably give that to Delhi at the moment. But then they've got Punjab, Sunrisers, and Royals. That's not bad. Let's say they lose the Delhi game, they'd at least be able to... If I was Kolkata, I'd be thinking, there is a big chance of me being able to go 3-1 in this period. And if they beat Delhi, they should be thinking 4-0. That may not happen. They may end up only winning one of those. But at very least, if you look at current form and their lineup and how they've looked since the break, you would have to say that they're a good chance of winning at least 2, if not 3 of those games. RCB are 1 and 2 since resumption, and looked like for long periods of that game against Mumbai, they might be 0 and 3. They seem to have left their mojo back in India. It felt like of the top 3 teams, they were always the least stable, and they've certainly proved that since the break. There's something quite weird about their team the more I think about it. They're just absolutely obsessed with all-rounders. Christian, Sundar, Harshal, Hasaranga, Jameson, Sams, Maxwell, and very few of their all-rounders have kind of paid off. They've all had little moments and little parts of the game that have been okay, but they just keep throwing all-rounders at everything. Kind of tells me that maybe they haven't found their best 11, and maybe they're still putting it together, but beating Mumbai was huge for them. And Harshal. I still don't get Harshal Patel. I don't understand why he's taken this many wickets, but I think I'm starting to get it. I think we don't have a revometer in cricket, but the more I look at his slow ball, he must just be putting a comical amount of revs on that ball, because at this stage, everyone knows he's bowling at around 50% of the time. They know it's coming, and yet you would assume that they could pick it because he's not exactly like he's hiding it that much, and yet he's still beating them. That says to me that he's putting revs on the ball. If that's the case, maybe Harshal is more of the real deal than we thought. Even if a lot of his wickets are sort of death wickets when the game, is a lot of wickets are going to happen, he's just really hard to play at the end when he's confident. We've seen what Ravi Jadeja can do to him when he's not confident, of course. The last thing with RCB is, have they done enough to get the 3rd spot? I think now they have certainly guaranteed themselves a chance in the playoff. 3rd spot, I'm still not so sure about. It'd be very interesting going ahead. And looking at RCB's last 4 games, they've actually got a great run. In fact, they've got exactly the same run that Kolkata has. Rajasthan, Punjab, Sunrisers, and Delhi. Again, they could go 2 and 2, and if 2 and 2 is more than enough for them. In fact, let's just put it in at 2 and 2. But there's a possibility of going 3 and 1 here. They don't want to leave it up to the last game because that is Delhi and that is going to be tough. They really want in their next 3 games to go 2 and 1 at very bare minimum and at least win one of them, so they're in a very, very good chance when it comes to points. But they're going well. They may not be looking great on the field, but they don't need that many more wins, so they're doing well. Mumbai have now won 3 straight games since the resumption, which makes me feel that they might actually have thought that this was a new season and no one's told them that this is just a resumption. On paper, they still look really good, but at a certain point, we have to screw up the paper and throw it away because they're not doing that on the field. Sky, Ishan Kishan, Krunal Pandya, they're just not doing what they need them to do at the moment. And, that is a strength of Mumbai. And at the moment, they're not getting it done. But it's not like you can drop those players for, obviously better players. Those are probably still 3 of their best 11, which makes everything quite tricky for them. Hardik Pandya hasn't bowled since before COVID, is that right? Someone said that in the comments of YouTube the other day. I haven't checked it to see if it's true. It feels like it's true. I still think that core of the Pandya brothers and Pollard is really important for them, and it does not look like... that's why I think they've been so good for so long. It just doesn't look like it's about to come good. I feel like they're about to get everything together and win a lot of games, but I felt that kind of all the way through the season. I don't know if they're going to qualify for the playoffs. They do obviously sometimes have years where they don't qualify for the playoffs. It's perfectly reasonable, even in the middle of their great run, for that to happen. It might be one of those years. IPL seasons are, compared to normal sports, quite comically short. These sorts of things happen. If you're playing along at home, you might know for the last 4 games they play Punjab, Delhi Capitals, Royals, Sunrisers. Which, if it sounds familiar, is familiar. That's a really good run. If they just beat the teams that they are better than on paper, they go 3-1 and give themselves a really good chance of qualifying for the finals. They're probably not going to be able to win all 4, and Delhi's going to be tough for them. But their last 2 games against the Royals and the Sunrisers, they've got to be pretty happy with that. If they can go 1-1 in the first 2, there's no reason why they can't end up with 3-1. The Royals have been 1-1 since the break, and they fought really hard against an ordinary team, and they got nowhere near beating a very good team. I still don't really understand how they are in a finals playoff contention, but hey, they are, so good to them. The Fizz has been absolutely brilliant. I thought there was really good signs from his bowling in the first half of the season. He went off and played with Bangladesh and looked even better, and he seems to have come back, and he is completely on top of his game. You know, it was his over that gave them the chance of winning that other game, or basically helped them win that other game. I thought he was exceptional against Punjab. Chris Morris played in one game, had the yips, went off the field to change his shirt, but looked not well. Missed the next game. Is that a problem? I mean, they're going to need Chris Morris, you would think, in order to get into the playoffs. He's going to have to be a star in the last few games. Is he fully fit? Was he just rested? I don't know. Did he have the yips? There's a lot of questions with Chris Morris. My other big question with them is just, can they bat? I've kind of felt that way all the way through the season. Evan Lewis looked good and then didn't play in the next game, but can they bat? They've actually got 5 games left and not 4 games left. And they've got Sunrisers, RCB, Chennai, Mumbai and Kolkata. They have one team in the top 2, the third team, one of the other surging teams, and Mumbai coming home. But the Sunrisers, that looks tough to me. That looks really tough to me. If they go 2-3, I think that would be quite fair. For them to be able to go 3-2 and give themselves a real chance at the playoffs, I think it would be hard, but it's not impossible. Mumbai would be a game that they should be targeting. They should really beat the Sunrisers quite easily, and then it's just a case of beating one of the other 3 teams. There's certainly a chance there. I can't see how they can go 4-1, however. If they win the Sunrisers game, they'll have 5 wins from 10. That gives them, that puts them 1 game up on everyone else who has 4 wins. If nothing else, that gives them a huge chance. Punjab are 1-1 since the break. They could be 2-0 really, but I suppose they could also be 0-2. So 1-1 seems quite fair. It's great that they've got KL Rahul back. Obviously, if the tournament had gone ahead, that wouldn't have been the case. What we don't really know about them, which is why they are so low on this, is that we don't know how they're going to go against good teams. They obviously fought hard against Rajasthan, and they barely won against Sunrisers. That's not a great sign for going ahead. All the teams on 4 wins can still qualify. And there's no reason why Punjab can't be one of them. And in some ways, I still kind of like their chances. It's just that because I've only seen them play 2 of the more ordinary teams, I just don't know where they are at the moment. Their last 4 games against Mumbai, KKR, RCB, and Chennai. That, again, it seems really tricky to me. They've got a bad net run rate, which is the other problem. They've got to play one team in the top 2 and one team in the top 3 and the surging KKR. Let's say they beat Mumbai, which is more than fair. They're probably still going to have to beat 2 of KKR, RCB and Chennai. If they can do that, then they deserve to probably be in the playoffs at that stage. But at the moment, you'd have to say that's unlikely. It's possible they could go 1-3 as well and completely fall off the cliff. Let's hope for 2-2 and see how that goes. And Sunrisers. I don't want to say this has been a long dry spell, but they haven't won a game since April. Bairstow never came over, and he was batting well. That's not ideal considering all their other batters don't seem to make any runs. Holder looks really good, and they played him for, 2 or 3 games because they haven't been able to fit him in. I mean, they couldn't even fit their captain in earlier in the season. That's how poorly they've been going. Rashid Khan's still good. He still plays for them. And for their last 5 games, no one cares. Even if they won all 5 of their last games, they still wouldn't qualify, is my guess. Thanks again for listening to the Power Rankings. Isn't it incredible how every time I just get everything so right, and so you just there's no point even moaning about it in the comments. You just have to say, Jarrod, you're just an incredibly handsome man, and I really enjoy your t-shirt with WG Grease on it. Smash the subscribe button, I suppose. People seem to say that on YouTube a lot, and we'll try and do one more Power Ranking, maybe before the playoffs, and then there'll be the playoffs and the finals and all that sort of stuff. See you then.